Thank you for attending the session today. This is our session on modernizing acquisition. Give me a second to get the slides. While we bring it up, it's a really long conference title. I think of it as just a fireside chat about acquisition. This is like you guys joining our conversation last night at our table. And we're just going to talk about acquisition. We're going to talk about the state of Texas and the acquisition system they've implemented on an Appian solution, award management. And we're also going to talk to Deloitte, who was the prime implementation partner on that contract. I'm going to start, though, with an introduction of Appian solutions, just in case you guys aren't familiar with them. I think it's important to know that first before we go into the discussion, because there's some uniquenesses to how this implementation was done, being a prepackaged solution versus taking Appian as a base product and implementing from scratch. So I will do that first, and then we will transition over to the panel discussion. So I promise these lovely people here who are going to remain silent for my first 3 slides, they will talk, and we will do the panel discussion. I'll just do a brief introduction of solutions. So first, when I think of solutions, I am biased because I'm part of the acquisition solution. So I typically just talk about the acquisition solutions. But what this slide is noting that Appian as a company has been building solutions now for over 3 years, and they are in different industry verticals. Government is one of them. It's the one that I'm the most fond of. It's the one I've spent most of my time as an Appian employee in the government sector. But we also have financial services, we also have insurance, and we have partner solutions, a large partner ecosystem that have been building out solutions in areas that they have domain expertise. On the government side, it's also not just acquisition. We have 5 solutions now in acquisition, but we also are working on a 360 case management solution as well, which will be coming out later in the year. We'll have lots of great details about that. And we have a workforce safety application that goes across horizontally all these different verticals. So solutions, relatively new at Appian. What we're trying to do with that is create prepackaged capability to meet specific business needs across those verticals. So instead of starting, again, from a base product that's basically a clean slate and developing those applications from scratch, you could start from a solution, 80 or 90% of the capability would already be there that you would need, and then because it's still that low-code platform, you could tweak it the rest of the way to make sure it fits your organizational needs. So I always like to show this slide because it talks about how we layer the Appian solution on top of the platform. So our solutions are not some separate product, separate coding. It's all configuration on top of the Appian platform. And we do that for much of the same reasons that our clients select Appian. You're selecting it to develop 10 times faster. You're selecting it because it has built-in integration capability. It has RPA. It has AI. And you can use all of those capabilities to create modern, powerful applications that are flexible for change. Same reason we created our applications on it. Specific to acquisition, which is near and dear to my heart, there are direct parallels between the capability and the platform and then how it's deployed in acquisition scenarios. Records, those are your requirements, your solicitations, and your awards, and your modifications. The integrations to the myriad of systems you're going to have, at least a finance system. But then on the federal side, you probably have 6 or 7 different integrations that you're going to need to integrate with. And having that integration tier with Appian to push and pull data makes it much more efficient. And then you're also going to need security. You're going to need role-based security. You're going to allow all the process participants into the application, be able to secure that data so the right people are seeing the right data. So that's the thought behind our solutions. Specific, though, to acquisition, which is what I've been doing for about 18 years at Appian. These are the acquisition areas that we've built out over time. Not all of them are acquisition solutions, but I at least wanted to level set where have different customers used Appian for acquisition. Some of them have been very targeted solutions. Those are the smaller boxes that you see up there. Things like managing their requirements or doing closeout functionality or automating clause selection. And some organizations have used this end-to-end to completely modernize their acquisition system. You can really do either. It's not a rip and replace. So if you have a legacy environment and pieces of it are working really well, but there's pain points along the way and you want to bring us in for a targeted solution, and Appian is meant to integrate into your enterprise and play nicely with your existing applications. Or if you want to modernize your complete acquisition system, you can do it over time, starting with modules and building the rest of it out. We're happy to do that as well. So you have a lot of flexibility. The other thing to note here with these areas is in those 18 years, we saw a lot of common functions and common systems being built by customers over and over again. And what we did was we used that knowledge and experience to say, well, we should probably create solutions for those because those seem like they're in the most demand. So these are the solutions that we've created. About 2.5 years ago, we started. Requirements management was our first solution. This was the one that we got lots of feedback in the government from both program office and contracting. And it was so interesting to hear their different perspective on it. The program office would say, I never know how to enter my requirements. It's always changing. I never know what documents are required. And we talk to contracting, and they'd be like, those guys never send us what we need. And then we're always going back and forth with it, and it takes forever. And we say, I think we can create a solution that helps both of you. And that's what we've done with requirements management. Award management, which is the solution that Texas implemented and we'll talk about in more detail as part of the panel, is the other end of the equation. I have these contracts, and I need to manage them. And so often when you create contracts, they're just a document. They're just a piece of paper. They're a PDF. And they don't really tell you anything. They don't tell you when their funding's running low. They don't tell you when their period of performance is about to expire, or they don't tell you if you have any option periods that maybe you could exercise and not have to do a new follow-on action. So we wanted to create a system to help you manage that contract, to view it from all different angles, from contract data to finance data to documents, your unstructured data that are stored in your contract file, and give you one central location where you could report on it, you could receive alerts on it, and they were no longer just pieces of paper. They were things that you could actually take action on and that you could manage processes. So that's award management. Briefly on the other three before we talk about those with Texas and Deloitte. We have also source selection, which is meant to help the government manage their evaluation process of proposals, so selecting the correct awardee for a contract for a given solicitation. We also have clause automation, which is for selecting those clauses and provisions on your contracts, doing it in an efficient manner, making sure you have updated clause language and helping you with things like fill-ins and validating you've included the right clauses. And then finally, we released vendor management, or we will be releasing that in June 3rd. That'll be our latest solution to help the interaction of contracting with vendors, responding to proposals, seeing their awards, interacting back and forth with all the documents and processes that are involved with getting that good or service from your vendor. So those are the solutions. I tried to be quick, but hopefully thorough enough to give you some of the background now as we go into our panel discussion. So briefly, let me introduce myself. I didn't do it at the beginning, so I am Ben Allen. I'm a director at Appian. I'm responsible for our acquisition solutions. I've been at Appian about 20 years. I spent most of that time in services working for federal civilian and DoD customers, specifically on acquisition. And then recently in my career at Appian, about 2.5 years ago, I moved over into the solutions group to build acquisition solutions. Joining me, Michael Barks from Texas Department of Public Safety, Jasmine Robinson also from Texas, Jake Edelman from Deloitte, the implementation partner. I have questions for you guys. I printed them out so I wouldn't forget. I wanted to kind of be like the late show, talk show, because I've always thought, like, how awesome would a late night acquisition talk show be? Like, that would be off the charts. They'd have my viewership every night.
Did you print out the answers too?
Yeah, I'll distribute those in a second. So my first one is just for Texas. If you could tell us a little bit about your organization, a little bit about yourself.
Okay. We're the Department of Public Safety, and we have approximately 11,000 employees, 2,000 or so that are commissioned officers, and the other 9,000 that support the safety of Texans through the administration of our driver license, our regulatory, all our licensing offices. So the makeup of Texas, or the makeup of the Department of Public Safety, requires us to buy extensive amount of goods and services. And unfortunately, Texas, we had a flaw in keeping our records. Everything was paper, everything then transferred over to SharePoint or to a shared drive. So as a result, we needed to move towards a system that would allow us to manage broadly and keep our records. And as a matter of fact, the legislature told us we did a poor job of record keeping. So
that's a nice way that they put it?
Yeah.
Poor job.
Poor job. I think they said a little more curt than that, but poor job is what we got from it.
And Jasmine, you want to talk about your role?
So my primary role, good afternoon everyone, my primary role is the facilitation of the acquisition processes for goods and services for the state of the agency, and monitoring those contracts and vendor management for that acquisition process.
Awesome. Jake, we'll get to you in a second. I'm going to start with Texas. You're like the Andy Richter. You sit over there. So we talked a little bit about the paper processes, your existing processes. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. And I would say that paper and still using Word is something I hear from customers all the time. So you're not alone. So I think the audience will probably be interested in just knowing some of the systems you have or systems you don't have as you go through your acquisition process.
Again, we use Microsoft products to build our solicitations. So what we have a complete contracting life cycle, like every one of you, I'm sure, where the process begins with a solicitation, then from the solicitation, the evaluation of the solicitation, and then the award, and then the ongoing management. All these processes have been capsulized into either file cabinets or, again, share drives, PDF, all types of documents, Excel spreadsheet, things of that nature. And the problem with that, or one of the major problems with that, is that we also had to have multiple people having to access these records. So again, with a large agency and multiple players continuously playing a part in the development of the contract or in the contract life cycle, we had to put it on a share drive. So using the Microsoft and using SharePoint and OneDrive was more or less our filing cabinet, or more or less our place. And there was continuously the question of the validity of the documents you're using. Are you using the latest document? So with all that, again, we needed to look at finding a way where we could streamline that and have a centralized repository.
And was most of that contract data locked in those documents? Did you have any sort of reporting on the dollars and dates and on top of the contract file, or did you have to search in the contract file to answer that type of information?
We had to search. So the thing with Texas, all of us use, or Texas state agencies, all of us use a centralized accounting and payroll system called CAPS, and it's a PeopleSoft base. We do not have access to the underlying database, so everything that we pull out of it, we have to pull through writing queries and extracting information. So as a result of having to do that, you could ask me how much money is remaining on a contract. We'd have to write a query to extract that. And so everything we did was more or less ad hoc. There was no way to quickly answer questions. And there was always a question from a department: how much money do we have left on the contract? How many renewals do we have available? What is the stipulation for this?
Yeah.
Where are the deliverables?
And the answer was probably, give me a week, or?
Give us a week and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
Yes.
And I think what we've heard from other agencies is how frustrating it is to be the person on the end of that data call. So you want to be a business advisor, you want to be doing acquisition, and suddenly you're spending time searching through documents and compiling lists and compiling reports.
Yes. And I actually love the procurement and contracting area, which makes me, I guess, a masochist, because
I'm with you. You're in good company up here. This could be a support group as well. I mean,
procurement and contracting is, everyone dreads calling procurement and contracting. It's, I need information, wow, I have to reach out to procurement and contracting. So it's not necessarily a desirable thing.
yeah, they never call to tell you how well that project's going, do they?
Absolutely, never, never. They call Jasmine to let her know how well things are going. They call me to complain. So.
Which is a good transition to Jasmine. So when you were looking for a new tool to solve some of these problems, what were the things you were considering when you were looking for that tool?
I think the team kind of, or should I say, we desired a COTS, a commercial off-the-shelf solution that was going to be easily configurable, scalable, expandable. Additionally, we wanted DPS, or to allow DPS not to have to utilize IT resources, right, to be able to configure on our own, not having to pay a consultant, being able to do the functionality and the modifications within ourselves.
Yeah, and we hear that so often. I mean, every organization is a little bit different, and you guys have a unique mission that's different than other agencies within Texas, which is different than other agencies or other federal agencies. Everyone's a little bit unique, and in your uniqueness, you have certain acquisition processes, and it's nice to be able to reflect that within the application without having to bring someone in to do it, or pay an arm and a leg on a COTS product that is not as flexible to do that. Can you tell us what stood out about award management?
I would have to say the out-of-box solution had everything, it met all of our requirements for the solution we were looking for, right? You had everything that was on site, it was user-friendly, easy to configure. All the functionalities for a contract management system was in that award management.
It's excellent, and that's what we strive for, so
Yeah.
I always like hearing it. I felt like as I was asking that, I was almost like asking the teacher, like, how's my son doing? Like, is he doing okay? Good things from him?
This
So
is one of your babies that you referred to.
it is one of my
Yes.
babies, yes. Michael, could you tell me a little bit about the timeline for deployment? So you did an evaluation, you saw the product, you said, yes, this looks good. So sort of what happened after that?
We started our process, I believe, in October, November of 20, doing market research, trying to figure out which way we go. We knew that we had to have a system implemented and in place before our fiscal year 22 was to start, which would have been September 1, 2021. So we, again, started it, and we were operating at the speed of government, and so it took us till June of 2021 to actually finalize the acquisition, and then we started discussion, and then by 9/1/2021 we had a viable product in place to roll out. So our timeline for getting it spanned about 9 months, but our timeline for implementation was about 3 months from the time we actually issued the PO and started the sprints to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, which is really quick. I think anyone in the audience would know. 3 months is pretty incredible. And that's what we were hoping to do with the solutions is we knew that when you started from scratch, even with Appian, even at 10 times faster, there's a lot of discussion you would have to have with your functionals, and then there could be a lot of greenfielding, like, well, what if it could do this, and what if it could do that? What we're hoping to do with the solutions is make that deployment timeline faster. Have a lot of the out-of-box functionality, but also where you need to make changes, allow you to make changes, and then roll out quickly. So I was very impressed with how you guys were able to roll it out so quickly, and Jake and Deloitte and the great job that you guys did as well. Can you tell me a little bit about the immediate impacts once you got it into production?
Once in production, or do you want to take this, or okay. Jasmine is the primary one that receives all the calls, and rightfully so gets all the accolades for the system. So I'm surprised she's letting me answer this. But the immediate reaction is we have a group of executives that continuously ask questions, and so far the feedback that we've received, this is a game changer, this is incredible. The answers, the questions that they ask, we no longer have to say, let me get back to you. We've actually taught them how to fish, so they're able to go into the systems themselves and pull out the information much quicker. So just that alone has made a difference. But one of the biggest differences the implementation has done, we found that we had a lot of corrupt data that we were storing manually. So having to transition that to the cloud, we've done an extreme amount of cleanup. So now our data is much cleaner, much more user.
Yeah, and I thought about having a data migration question, but then they're like, it's only a 25-minute session. Like, you can't go into data migration. So we could talk about that later. We could talk about it at the ballpark tonight. Jasmine, specific for the end users, I think Michael talked about some of the executives and their reception. How has the end user reception been? I know that change management can be difficult sometimes.
Well, I'll start again. I'll piggyback off of Michael. The executive on down to the middle manager is overwhelming with positivity. I think the divisions, our internal divisions, are ecstatic, right? Because again, you're not having procurement be the middleman or the intermediary, right? You can go into the system and view your contracts and have the valuable information you need. It's there, right? You don't have a middle person. So divisions are ecstatic. I will say our contract developers within our procurement, a little less thrilled, right? Because again, their information is the foundation, right? They're setting the tone for all that information that's input into the system. So a little less thrilled, but overall, great positivity, overwhelming positivity with the system.
Are there things that users or that you're looking forward to build in there as you continue to modernize?
Oh yeah. Now that we have a better idea and an outlook on what it looks like, we want to kind of interface some of our other tools, Tableau, DocuSign, be able to get into the weeds for PeopleSoft, which is our platform for CAPS. So yeah, we're going to do a lot.
Yeah, so more automation.
Absolutely.
Try to take some of the clerking of data off their plate. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
which we hear so often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can just add to something here.
Yeah.
As we're walking around the exhibition hall, some of your partners indicated that there's a thing called bots. And so we will be discussing that once we're back.
All right.
The one limitation that we have, again, we don't have the access to the back end of our financial system. So we have to extract data from there, and we're currently extracting data through daily queries, and then we're importing it into the Appian platform. We want to automate that, and the bots
Can help with that.
can help with that.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about that. Jake and I would both love to talk about that. Maybe if you guys just want to hang out for a second, we'll come back to it after we talk about the bots. Jake, over to you. First, I'll say it's been great working with you because we go back a little ways. Appian's working with Deloitte on acquisition projects for a while, did a project 10 years ago, then you and I met on Air Force, and then now continue to meet and talk on new acquisition projects that Deloitte's doing with Appian. So pleased to have you join us. I think if they looked on the original schedule, they probably saw Gail Guseman was joining us. This is not Gail, this is Jake. Gail was not able to travel last minute, and Jake, you were kind enough to join us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So you've seen a variety of acquisition systems, a variety of technology. Working with award management, was there something that stood out as being different, unique?
So before low code, Appian was business process management and user perspective workflow automation. Bringing that to the forefront and having a single system, a single solution that really focuses on how end users are going to do something. That stood out as just fantastic in awards management. And as others have already said on this panel, it brings together COTS, which traditionally is very hard to configure on the Appian platform, makes it easy to configure. So even though out of the box it's a fully capable production solution that we provision on Appian Cloud in 2 hours, we were able to configure it to meet the rest of the 80/20 that was needed. So that was great.
I'm glad you said the 2 hours too. I think it's the most magical part, and maybe it's because I'm still like a little bit of a kid when it comes to technology, but to have a new instance just up and ready to go and ready for you to start your configurations is pretty awesome. So I know we probably have people in the audience that are looking to modernize their acquisition systems. Do you have advice or guidance that you could give them?
So I would say don't start from scratch, right? There are solutions out there. Your processes may seem unique, but start with something that is fully fledged, fully production capable. Understand what that product looks like. So we went in depth with demos, understanding all the capability, looking at all the roles, and looking at all the access rights and the screens and the dashboards. And we started from that instead of starting from the base, right? If you're going to take a solution and improve upon it, understand that solution. So that was number one. Number two was if you want to go fast, like we did, go agile, right? You can't do something in 3 months if you're going to spend so much time going back and forth on requirements and getting everyone to sign off. We had Michael and Jasmine in many, many conversations of backlog grooming and prioritization, and that's how we got this thing out.
It takes that commitment, right? Because you need the customer, you need a strong customer like Texas to say, we may not have everything now, but we're going forward with it. we're going to learn a lot through its implementation and through its usage, and then we can prioritize the backlog. Yeah, so it's always great to work with customers like you guys that are strong. Any misconceptions about modernizing a system? Any myths we can bust, or anything about how data migration is actually easy and you shouldn't worry about it?
Data migration is not easy.
So
There's
much
no
for that
myth
one.
there. Data migration is not easy. You don't need to rebuild the whole thing to modernize a system. You can start with an MVP, and you can improve capability, and you can get the quick wins. So don't bite off more than you can chew. Understand what's going to get you success right away, and improve from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned Agile. The 3 months, again, is pretty amazing from the implementation side. Anything else you would share there that helped you do it so rapidly?
I would say assembling the right team, right? So when you start with a COTS product, doesn't matter if it's an Appian COTS product or some other vendor, you have to have the vendor buy-in. So we brought Appian Professional Services on our team so that we could get the tie back, and we got the direct line back to Ben for questions and answers and get some stuff in the product roadmap for improvements, right? So make sure that everyone's invested, from the customer, the integrator, and the solution provider.
Thank you. So I've been watching the clock. I can't believe 25 minutes has already gone by. It flies when you talk about acquisition. So I would say that while we don't have Q&A as part of this session, we'll be around the conference. We're at the thing tonight. I'm sure. Love to talk acquisition at any time. It's been a pleasure meeting you guys in person, because we started this during COVID. So it was nice to finally put a three-dimensional shape with that image that I've been seeing for months on the other end of the computer. So thank you guys for joining me. Jake, as always, it's great to have you here as well. Thank you guys. One last thing, if on the app you can also provide some feedback on the session, we'd appreciate it. But thank you, everybody.